I am colleagues with Estefania. We both work at Freddie Mac, but we're both also on the leadership team for the Hispanic BRG at Freddie Mac. And so I've been working alongside Estefania all year, and I really haven't had the opportunity to tell her that I'm such a big fan of her. And she is a good 10 years younger than me, but I really look up to her in a lot of ways. And so I'm so glad that she was chosen to speak to everybody here. If you haven't had a chance to look at Estefania's bio on the event website, I'm going to have her, I think we only have got 10 minutes to talk or so, so we're going to be talking quickly, but I'm going to have her give us like a Cliff Notes version of her year. And the reason being that everything that we've shared so far is wonderful advice, but it may be on some of our minds. Okay, how am I going to do all that from home, right? So COVID-19 threw a wrench in the entire globe, and it has reset a lot of plans that we had. We've had to process a lot of fear. We've had to process some of us job loss or switching industries. And so one of the ways that we're being visible is by being resilient, is by bouncing back, is by adapting when suddenly things are, up in the air. And that's something that I think the Latino Hispanic community does very well because of our backgrounds, because of our stories, and because of just the ways, again, the different journeys that we had to take to get where we are make us valuable in that way. And so I was trying to remember how I first learned of Estefania or met her at Freddie Mac, and I couldn't remember because she's just there. You just know her because she's involved and invested. And so I don't remember when I first met her, but I'm very glad to be acquainted. And so Estefania, give us the cliff notes of, again, your year, not just at Freddie Mac and what you've been involved in, which has been a huge contribution, but also, your trip with your family and your business as a family and what you did there.
Sure. Wow, such kind introductions. I almost feel like I don't deserve them. So when COVID happened, right, I at least thought we were going to be home for 2 weeks. And family is so important to me. I'm from California. I was living in Washington, D.C. I said, let me take these 2 weeks and go see my family that I usually only get to see once a year. And 2 weeks quickly turned into the whole calendar year. And while I was there, just to preface, so my family's from a small ranchito in Mexico. And I think we try to replicate that here in California. And so we have an avocado farm that's really just a labor of love. If you know anything about farming, you break even every year and you're okay with that. And 2 weeks in, obviously all markets were impacted. And my dad comes home and says, the avocado market for wholesale, which is where you sell to distributors that then sell to grocery stores, dropped 40%. And so if you're only breaking even year to year, and it's easy math, you don't have to work in finance to know it's not going to work. And so what can I do now that I'm a first gen college student out working in business? How can I help? And that's when it started off as a Google form. We were like, okay, let's do an avocado online delivery service and see what sticks. And that's been like the biggest change in my family's business, is now it's actually profitable and it's becoming an income for my family. And so from delivering, I think maybe the first 40 orders were people that I knew, and they were from, Fernando. I remember he ordered a box of avocados. It was from my neighbors. And after the first 40 orders, I didn't know who was in New Jersey ordering avocados or in Wisconsin. And I think it's tickled my family a bit to know that their labor that before maybe they didn't value as much or know how much was worth is now shipped to 41 states around the country. So that's been such a great learning experience and has taken a literal village outside of my family to build. But I would say that's been the most memorable experience now being in 2020.
So that was a lot right there. And I just want to recap for everybody the highlights. Estefania's family immigrated to the United States. Estefania is the first gen in her family, has graduated from college, has gotten herself an amazing role at Freddie Mac. Estefania works at Freddie Mac full time, helps us to attract more talent, establishes partnerships with local universities and colleges for to focus on the Latino pipeline of bringing Latinos into the company. And on top of all that, she helped her family adapt and realize the value of what they have, the value of their avocados, the value of their property, the value of their family. And in the face of a crisis in this country, instead of losing money or losing the farm or losing opportunities, all the opposite happened, right? And so that is huge. I want you to understand that that's like really amazing. And I want everyone to understand, again, as Latinos and Hispanics, this is what we do. This is who we are. We work hard. We, life throws us lemons and we make lemonade. So can you talk more? You mentioned the word village. And I want to understand, as a young person, the reason I'm so impressed with you is because a lot of young people, not to generalize or give young people a bad name, but literally it's like, turn down for what? I just want to party. I just want to enjoy my life. And even older people, at our bigger companies, we've got 10,000 employees or so at each of the companies involved in this event. A lot of people go to work, they type, and they go home and they collect their paycheck. So why are you different? What drives you? And what is it? What are the values that you have as a result of your family or your community that make you decide to do something different and contribute that value everywhere you go? Clearly.
Good question. I wear my heart on my sleeve. It's who I am, and it's why I spend my time doing this type of work. And honestly, I think it comes down to what you're passionate about. And so for me, it's my family, it's paying it forward and giving back. And so whether I'm, helping serve on the board of a nonprofit, I will take that hour to help that student get there. Or if it's helping my family figure that out in terms of our business situation, I'm going to be there. And so I think it's really aligning yourself to what you think is important. And for me right now, knowing that I have to put my oxygen mask on first and obviously have my full-time job and be succeeding there, it's also finding how else I can get involved. And I just find a lot of joy out of getting to connect with people and getting to learn from others and how we can really make an impact. And so for me, that's not work. And that becomes my social setting. And yes, we can still have like the parties and everything else, but Monday through Sunday during the day or, throughout the day, this is definitely where my priorities have been. And so for other young professionals, align yourself. At least for me, I always build out a 5-year plan. Where do I want to be? And how am I going to get there? And, there's obviously, there's always bumps in the road, but at least sticking to your core values, I think helps us choose those forks in the road of whether we're going to make one decision or another.
What has been your strategy in your role on our BRG, and how do you feel? Again, you said values, right? So the values that you have in being grateful, in giving back, and again, investing. There's a lot of talk about, in your professional life and your career about connecting. But I think we've established so far this afternoon that it's more about investing, right? Mentors, sponsors, people like yourself who are doing, recruiting and actively, you're investing time and energy. So talk more about that value for you, how you went about setting up a system, because you've done, again, despite the challenges, despite us all being separated and being at home, you've done an amazing job this year with the role that you volunteered to take on. So can you tell us more about that?
Sure. So I think that stems from knowing how many mentors and sponsors have been there for me, and realizing that it just takes that one person to be your voice in a room that you're not in, to vouch for you. And so I initially, when we were looking at these recruitment efforts, I'm like, well, how can I do that now, even though I'm only maybe 2.5 years into my career, and I'm so connected to college still. And at least in my college hire program through the Freddie Mac, you see discrepancies. I was the only Latina in the whole program of 30 people. And I didn't think anything of it really, but I thought, how else can I start helping and paying it forward? And so with the Latino Business Resource Group, that's where we've been really intentional in, okay, well, if I were to go back when I was a student, what spaces was I attracted to, right? Maybe it wasn't career services. Maybe it was the Latino business resource groups that existed on campuses. And so how can we as an employer now focus on finding those students that we know are so talented, but maybe just don't know or have the knowledge of how to recruit into our companies? And so I was super thankful. There's 3 or 4 other analysts that share the same passion for this. And we started outreaching to different universities and partnering with our college hire programs, our HR group, and creating a network and support system and saying, this is an initiative we're going to do. We want your feedback, and this is the programming that we want. And we want these programs and the hiring managers to get involved. And it's been super positive. I'm hoping, we get a few analysts that join us in this next year from our efforts, but I think the virtual setting also shifted us. So initially we had our local strategy and we switched to virtual, which I think served us more. We're able to reach students all throughout the country. And it's so fun to have a one-on-one session with our future capital markets analyst from University of Georgia and just seeing her grit and how much she wants this. And all she needed was someone to develop her that last 20% of the way. But if it wasn't for that last 20%, maybe
Right.
been able to achieve that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. There's 2 things that you said that popped out to me. It was kind of like one, and I'm Puerto Rican, and I was born and raised in the Bronx. There are Latinos everywhere all the time. And so coming into Freddie Mac after a long period of working at very small nonprofits was my first experience ever in life, entering a room and being the only Latina Hispanic person or being the only woman. And so, if we're in these rooms, are we noticing that we're the only ones in there? And does it matter to us that we're the only ones in there? And if it does, what are we doing about it? And then the second thing being, the way that you talked about your strategy, you basically built a lot of bridges. You built bridges between our leadership group and our HR division. You built leaderships between our company and educational institutions. And you're seeing the silver lining in the situation. COVID made some things very difficult or even impossible, but it opened up a lot of other things. There's always the flip side of that coin. So I'm again, I love you, Estefania. I'm so glad that I know you. I'm so glad that we all have this network. I think you're great. Please run for president because I'd love to vote for you. And yes, thanks to everyone at the Latinx-DC corporate network, all the companies invested and involved here today. Really, it's so great that we have the Latino and Hispanic community. I love belonging to it. I love our magic and the value that we bring. And so, yeah, I'm excited to meet all of you and excited to be part of this event and to see what else we're going to learn tomorrow. So thanks. And back to you, Fernando.
Thank you both. It's stories like that of adapting to conditions, that have really made our culture noteworthy in the history of time. And I think I'll tell you, those organic avocados were delicious and our whole family enjoyed them. We'll keep doing it, not only to support you, but because they're an excellent and healthy snack.